Hello everyone and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul. Today I have a very special unboxing. This is the brand new AMD Radeon R9 295X2. We have a version from SAPPHIRE here that you can actually purchase. I'm going to be doing an unboxing as well as an overview of the detailed specs. So we'll start off with what I know you guys want to see, and that's the outside of the retail box. But yeah, getting right down to it, this is a dual GPU graphics card. It includes two Hawaii GPUs, which also power the AMD Radeon 290, as well as a 290X. You get 8 gigs of GDDR5 memory, that's 4 gigs per card. Features GCN architecture, AMD Affinity technology, and 4 mini display ports. Around here on the back, we have some more information, some more specs. If you guys really want to pause it and take a look, you can. I do want to point out that this card is really geared towards 4K gaming, or at least higher than 1080. If you're going to be gaming at 1080, this is really quite overkill from that perspective. But the really important thing on the box is actually down here on the bottom, and that would be the specifications. Now again, you guys can take a closer look at that if you want to, but the thing I really want to point out down here is the system power supply requirements. This board has a typical board power of 500 watts, and it features two 8-pin PCI Express power connectors. And if you're doing the math and you know how much power an 8-pin PCI Express power connector can supply, it's 150 watts. So basically you're going to be drawing more than 150 watts from your two 8-pin PCI Express power connectors, which is not a big deal in most situations. Just make sure that you have a beefy power supply that's capable of supplying 28 amps of dedicated current for each of those 8-pin power connectors. Inside the retail box we have another retail box. This whole setup is actually quite heavy. I believe it's close to 15 pounds. But going back to those power supply requirements, in case you guys are talking about overall power, looking at something around 800 watts total for a single card, and if you're going to run with two of these, you're probably going to want something closer to 1500 watts. And the graphics card is heavy, just in case you didn't realize that. Nice padding in there, of course, and then we have this little guy which got dislodged somehow. Aha! But here we have the packaging, and as you can see, the card is very well protected and also covered with some plastic. So we'll just lift that out of there, and we'll set that to the side so we can take a closer look in just a few moments. Apart from that, wow, that really is a ton of padding in there, which is nice if you're going to be going for a card that's this high end. You want to make sure that it arrives to you in one piece. And wow, really, really heavy cardboard there as well. Apart from that, we also have a large box here with all of the other accessories. So SAPPHIRE driver installation CD. Go to the AMD website and download the latest drivers. If you do happen to be getting this card very soon, at least get your 14.3 or 14.4 beta drivers, because those are going to give you the best support for Mantle, for example. They have provided an adapter here, a mini Displayport to standard Displayport, which I like because you're going to need 4 of these adapters if you're going to be doing an Affinity setup and you don't have native mini Displayport. They're also giving you a DVI to HDMI adapter, which seems, oh no, there is an HDMI. There's a DV on there, I'm sorry. So you can convert that if you have an HDMI connection. I do want to point out that all of these display ports on there are also dual mode, so that you can easily convert them over to DVI or HDMI connections. You get a Fueled by SAPPHIRE sticker in there. You get a quick installation guide, which is sort of a generic hardware installation guide. I'm guessing this probably isn't going to cover things like installing a radiator. No, it is not. But you do also have basic system requirements here, so take a closer look at those if you guys want to. More information about SAPPHIRE and SAPPHIRE products. We have a set of screws which are there to assist you in mounting the radiator to your case, since this does not just include a graphics card but also a closed-loop cooler with a 120mm radiator, and then a more specific R9 295X graphics user's guide and owner's manual. I'm guessing this one is probably where SAPPHIRE, yes, has gone the distance and given you more requirements and installation methods specific to the R9 295X2. But let's take a look at the card. How about? The card itself, as you can see, is maintaining AMD's reference design for this card, and chances are we're not going to see too many variants on this, but SAPPHIRE has taken the liberty of adding some SAPPHIRE branding, so you've got a SAPPHIRE sticker there at the center, as well as a SAPPHIRE sticker on the fan part itself. The card, however, is 12 inches long, which is pretty standard for a dual GPU card, and once again, as you can see at the back in those two brackets, this card, it does feature two full-size Hawaii GPUs. That's the same GPU that's in the AMD Radeon R9 290X. So each GPU has 2,816 stream processors, each GPU has 176 texture units, and each GPU has 64 ROPs, or raster operators. Now the cool thing about that, along with the fact that you have full Hawaii GPUs, they haven't underclocked them or shaved off some of the specs or anything like that. You get the full GPUs, and they're even clocked a little bit higher. They're actually clocked to a 1018 megahertz boost clock compared to the 1000 megahertz clock of the AMD R9 290X, so that's pretty cool. Essentially what that means is if you were to compare this card to two R9 290Xs in Crossfire, the performance is going to be about the same. The higher clock speed on this one is pretty much going to make up for the slight amount of added latency you get because there is a PLX, a 48-lane PLX bridge integrated onto the PCB of this card, which allows the two GPUs to play nice together through the single PCI Express Gen 3 slot. Speaking of the PCI Express Gen 3 slot, you can see that down there at the bottom. Apart from that, we have a beautifully designed metal shroud with black and silver accents, as you can see, along with the red of the fan. They've also added a bit of LED lighting, so the fan will light up, and you also have a red Radeon logo there as well that will also light up. And when you're talking about a high-end card like this, it's nice to have a little bit of aesthetic features to help show that off, especially if you're going to have a windowed side panel on your system or something like that. Moving on to memory, the memory is running at 5 gigahertz. It's GDDR5 memory, and again, same memory complement that you get with the 290X, just doubled, so 4 gigs per GPU. That gives you a total of 8 gigs, and they are still 512-bit. That means that AMD, through some magical engineering process, was actually able to lay out 1,024 trace layouts between the GPUs and the memory on this, and the memory controllers on this card, which is quite a feat of engineering, I must say. The PCB, which you can sort of see the side of right there, is 14-layer, which is a bit unprecedented for a standard graphics card, but this is not necessarily your standard graphics card. And again, that's necessary in order to connect all of the moving or non-moving parts, I should say, on this GPU together so that they can all work together harmoniously. Apart from that, you have 6.2 billion transistors in each GPU, and again, that typical board power of 500 watts. The power requirements here have been taped off by Sapphire just as a preventative measure, because again, you are going to want to make sure that you have a beefy power supply with, again, 28 amps per 8-pin power connection right there. So there's your two 8-pin power connectors. Now, going back to this again, because this was an interesting choice by AMD, they could have, for example, added another PCI Express graphics power connector. They chose not to, and that's simply because a lot of power supplies don't have more than 4 or sometimes even 2 of these, depending on the power supply that you're using. That will allow system integrators and people who are building their systems at home to have a little bit more compatibility, particularly if you're going to be going with 2 of these cards, which I know not many people will be doing, but some people will, and that will allow you to run 2 of these cards with only 2 8-pin PCI Express graphics power connectors. The architecture in these GPUs is GCN, which means it's fully compatible with Mantle, which is gaining additional games support from different game engines. We've just heard announcements from CryEngine, for example, as well as the new Sid Meier's Civilization Beyond Earth game will be also integrating Mantle support, so you'll be able to get a nice boost from that. Flipping around to the back of the card one more time because I didn't really talk about it specifically, they've also integrated a full back plate, which I really like, especially if you're talking about a high-end premium graphics card. It really gives it a nice finish. Not only does it protect a lot of the components there in the back, but it keeps the look and feel to be pretty uniform when you have it actually installed in your case. They have also included this tiny little switch down here on this side, which I did not see listed in the product specs. However, if this is sharing the same lineage from the 290X, chances are that is an Uber switch, which means that you have a lower position which will lower the fan speed a bit, and then another position which will increase the fan speed, and that will allow you to potentially run at higher clock speeds. Another thing about the design of this card that you can't see very well, but hopefully we can give you guys an exploded view of it, you have 2 Ace-Tech designed coolers with copper bases, so you can sort of see the sides of each of those closed loop coolers through the gaps right there. Also at the center you have a fairly substantial copper fin array, and that's what this center fan is going to be blowing straight down over. That's to protect the VRMs, the power delivery modules for the card, keep those nice and cool, and also provide some additional airflow across the memory, because most of the heat from the two GPUs is going to be wicked away by those Ace-Tech coolers and transmitted through the liquid from these tubings, if I can pluralize tubing, and over to the radiator right here, which is a 38mm thick radiator, width-wise, 120mm by 120mm, so it will accept standard 120mm fans. You get one that comes along with it. However, you could easily add another one if you wanted to set up a push-pull configuration, for example. This is a fully enclosed loop. So flipping around to this side, you can see these are completely sealed, which means you're not going to have any maintenance required. So you can pretty much use this card for the lifetime, and it will liquid cool itself, and you don't really have to worry, which is kind of the advantage of the closed loop coolers. One other thing as far as the fan over here goes, it is hardwired through this plug and connects over to the Ace-Tech coolers, and the Ace-Tech coolers will be regulating that fan speed based on the temperatures of the GPUs themselves. And from what I have read online so far and some tests that have been going on, the GPUs are probably going to be hovering around 70 degrees under load, which is significantly cooler than the 95 watts that the 95 degrees Celsius that the AMD R9 290Xs were running at. For some additional support, there's actually a black bracket, you can kind of see the bottom of here, that runs the entire length of the card, covers up the memory modules, so it provides some additional cooling over those. You can kind of see some of the fin array that they've integrated into that there between those gaps in the shroud, but that provides a substantial amount of weight to the card. This is a fairly heavy card, but it does also provide a lot of sturdiness and stability for the PCB itself, so really not going to see much flexing or bowing out of this card, I don't think, once you actually have it installed. That would probably be more the motherboard that's going to be experiencing that, but potentially you might want to consider some additional supports for this card once you have it actually installed. Finally, here at the back we have the video outputs, and that is provided by a dual-link DVI port, which you can see right there. That's going to do up to 2560 by 1600 resolution. Bear in mind, no analog support on this card at all, but honestly, if you're buying this card and trying to plug it into an analog monitor, I don't know what's wrong with you. You also have some air gaps right there, just going to let some hot air out. And then the 4 mini display ports, which means that out of the box you can set this up with Eyefinity for up to 5 displays, or if you happen to have a MST, a multi-stream transport hub, or a Displayport 1.2 MST enabled monitor that supports daisy chaining, you can do even more monitors for some pretty crazy Eyefinity display setups. And that is going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Once again, we've been taking a look at Sapphire's rendition of the AMD R9 295X2 dual Hawaii GPU graphics card. I'm Paul with Newegg TV, and if you enjoyed this video, or if you really like high-end dual GPU gaming graphics cards, go ahead and click the like button. Leave me a comment down in the comments section below and let me know which game you would play first if you had this graphics card. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.